What's Underneath the Human's Helmet? By JCB 112. There's a lot of talk going around about our great benefactors. A lot of it good, some of it bad, but all of it surrounding issues beyond their genuine benevolence toward our galaxy and our fellow sapients. Throughout this age of reconstruction, we have been blessed with the kindness and compassion that is now becoming synonymous with the very species that has brought us up from the dregs, humanity. We have been bestowed with food and water, shelter and homes, opportunities and new responsibilities, and a new outlook on not just ourselves, our civilization, but toward the galaxy and the universe at large. We owe a lot to humanity, and despite their naysayers, we can't deny how much they've brought us up from the brink of collapse. Yet one question lingers throughout that has become an increasing point of contention with each passing year. A question that was indeed superfluous and silly in the early phases of our reconstruction, as there were just so many more pressing matters to attend to. Yet, it was a question all the same. A pertinent one that relates to their trustworthiness at that. A question involving what humans actually were. Sure, they were sapients. That much we gathered. Yes, they were very advanced. That much we could not argue with. Of course, they were materially prosperous. The reconstruction process alone had clued us in on that fact. An entire galaxy's worth of civilizations brought up back to interstellar capabilities within a century certainly wasn't something cheap to fund, after all. However, were they trustworthy? What ulterior motives did they have? They were benevolent, sure, but where did that benevolence lead? Questions like this were assuaged at first by the constant reaffirmations of their promises. They'd promised to rebuild our worlds, molecule by molecule, stone by stone, and they did so without strings attached or even a request for thanks. They'd promised to rebuild our infrastructure, to bring us back to the space age, and they did, circuit board by circuit board, and once again, they did so without so much as a desire for gratitude. They promised to bring back our lost culture, reaching into the depths of space to seek out long-lost signals, any fractured remnants of our memories long forgotten. And they did so to the best of their abilities, once again, without any request for repayment. Yet, they have never revealed their true selves to us. They never truly revealed what they were underneath those clothed suits. Their bipedal forms were rather unique to our galaxy, most of our forms having multiple limbs and a body that required 4 limbs to walk and 2 limbs to manipulate the world around us. The humans were thus strange, but not unheard of. Yet, where their skin should be, they were covered from neck to toe in clothes. And underneath those clothes were what we assumed to be encounter suits. Yet they were too skin-tight to be even that. There was no way any means of air filtration or even the most basic passive heat filtering systems could be embedded in something that just resembled a mechanical black skin. Yet it wasn't mechanical enough to be immediately considered as synthetic. Their heads were always covered by this helmet. This all-encompassing, ubiquitous, metal and glass construct that sat atop their already suited bodies. But no 2 humans had the same helm. Some wore helms resembling that of a soldier, which I could understand. Some wore something more resembling a pilot's. That again, I understood. Utility was the mother of all things, after all. But some wore helmets that did not serve any utility, or at least as far as I could tell. Some wore helmets that displayed screens where their eyes should be. Some had full faceplates mimicking facial expressions or features, except in far more simplistic and, frankly, primitive forms. Think text-based analogs for facial expressions. And whilst all spoke in similar voices, cadences, and inflections, all were synthesized through similarly sounding vocoders. all were an enigma. An enigma that was slowly feeding the fuels of distrust growing as a result of our requests on the matter falling on deaf ears. No matter how much we asked, when we asked, or how we asked, we were always met with the same answer: no. We knew we had no real reason to think of anything of this strange refusal. Yet we could not help ourselves but to wonder, and to sow the seeds of distrust from what should have been an innocuous aspect of their being. Diplomatic Ship Vanguard, docked to Phoenix Station. It was just another morning, yet that was difficult to really tell, given the day-night cycles on this ship weren't calibrated for my species in particular. I woke up to a simple alarm, one that got me to shower, prep, and to attempt to feign some veneer of normalcy given the mission I was currently on. It was time for another report review audit, and I, along with many other representatives from across the galaxy, were preparing to meet the humans in person. Or rather, as in person as it could be, given their disposition. I was perhaps the only species that resembled the humans in form, other than the Turlacidasians, who were, for lack of a better way of putting it, only seasonally bipedal. For every few years they would shed their hind legs to regrow a new pair, and during this time they would resemble something of a bipedal form, if only temporary. No, I was Rillian, a race that walked on two legs as the humans did, that carried myself aloft with two arms by my side, like the humans, and had a head connected via a neck on top of my shoulders, like a human. Yet, unlike a human, I actually allowed the world to see me for who I really am. I did not hide underneath a helmet. But perhaps I was getting too ahead of myself here. The humans weren't necessarily hiding anything, or at least, I wished to give them that benefit of a doubt. They had no signs of any malignant intent. Yet, I still couldn't help but feel put off by how they presented themselves. It didn't take long for me to prepare myself for the meeting. A meeting that occurred in a group setting at first, as a large circular table would be set around a single human representative who stood surrounded by a round podium. That made them out to be more of a target than a leader. Yet, as anyone would have you know from even meeting a human before, they exuded anything but an air of submissiveness. No, they were in fact exuding something far beyond even the predator-prey relations. They seemed above that, disconnected from that, as if they were superior to all of that by virtue of their disconnect from what was seemingly the organic world. They were an enigma that had once again managed to solve each and every one of our issues as if they were as trivial as a child's arithmetic textbook. It was with this that I sat down for yet another lengthy talk, discussions over resource management, of internal policing and politics, of morals and ethics, as a decision was once again quickly made on the prolonging of humanity's oversight of the galaxy. We could technically kick them out at any point. Once again, there were no strings attached for their aid. Yet we kept them around. Perhaps we were scared of what would happen if they did leave. Perhaps we were terrified of the prospects of being alone yet again. Perhaps we needed them just to remind ourselves that we were safe, if only for their presence. Yet the matter of their enigmatic form still remained completely unaddressed within the strictly business-like attitudes of this meeting. It was only after the meeting that I was able to finally breathe again. It wasn't hot or cold or uncomfortable by any means. It was just overwhelming to be in the same room as a human for so long. It was with this that my curiosity continued to spike, even as I left the room after the day's discussions were over, even as I continued walking down that hall towards the dining hall. I was literally right there, 3 meters, maybe 4, away from the human in question. I wanted to see what was underneath. I wanted to know what they were hiding underneath. Representative Catherine, I suddenly heard from behind me. A vocoded voice that sent shivers up my spine, and that caused my whole body to shudder in a fight-or-flight response. One that was quickly suppressed by the aura exuded by the human. I turned around, only to bow deeply in respect, my body forcing me to take a single knee as the human simply raised a single hand to cancel that very action. That is not necessary, Representative Catherine. You have shown enough respects during your opening speech, which, if I may be so brazen, was most well written. The human spoke, her eyes remaining that same simple pixelated lined ones that were just facsimiles of real eyes. Her mouth simply did not exist, as her helmet's faceplate ended only halfway down her face. The bottom half was just that same, unfeeling metal on metal. I thank you for your words, Your Grace. I once more bowed. How may I be of service to you? The human's eyes shifted once again, now resembling something of a warmer, friendlier expression as she spoke. There is no service required of you, or your people, Representative. I thought I made that clear. Yes, Your Grace. My sincerest apologies, Your Grace. I once more bowed as I heard a sigh emerging from that vocoder, perhaps the only sign of anything organic underneath that mass of cloth, metal, and glass. I sense some unease amidst your ranks of late, amongst your kind and your peers, especially you, Representative. Are there any concerns you would wish to raise with me? My whole body froze as my eyes refused to meet her own. I could barely breathe as I let out a few hushed breaths before responding. Your Grace, the galaxy of Aranti holds no ill will towards you or your kind or your generosities. There was a pause now as I considered my words, as I now was face to face with the being of my deepest curiosities. I desperately wanted to know. I craved it. Your Grace, there is something, perhaps not universally an issue. I mean, it's really not an issue to begin with, but it is something that I wish to discuss with you, if you will allow me to humor my foolish, selfish desires, that is. The human did not shift. She remained standing in that same perfect, unnaturally serene posture that she had been in for the past few minutes. Her ethereal cloak refused to flutter even with the HVAC systems right above us. No movements were made on her part, while I forced myself to muster up that courage to speak. You have my attention, Representative. Please, speak freely. My curiosity, our curiosity is on I tensed up, my whole body shaking, as I finally said what was on everyone's mind. What is underneath the human's helmet, Your Grace?